Welcome to the Daily Debate Thursdays with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we chose away from politics to speak about Egypt's soft power. Egypt is definitely utilizing its soft power in the plans of digital transformation. The country possesses different types of soft power, among the most important, in addition to the language, the history, and the rich culture, also the political geography. The religious establishments of the country, as Al-Azhar and also the Coptic Church, lend the country a major religious as well as also a spiritual status. The strength and influence of Egypt's soft power in the region is integrally related to the strength of the state, and the political leadership is very aware of the importance of soft power, importance of culture also as a mainstay of the national strategy. Tonight we'll be talking about education and the digital transformation and co-link this with soft power. We have all the pleasure to have with us Professor Dr. Ahmad Abdel Tawwab, Assistant Professor of Linguistics and Translation, Menoufaia University. Dr. Abdel Tawwab, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you very much, Taghreed, for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And actually, it was a great idea in your latest article to outline Egypt in the era of digital transformation, linking education with digital transformation. This is actually the future.
It is. As a matter of fact, this is very, very important to talk about it today. Yeah. We are talking about soft power of our country, Egypt, and we are just trying to connect that with the concept of digitalization. This is a watershed issue that we have nowadays. Now, when it comes to soft power, I think that it's very important to explain to our audience and to our viewers today, what does it mean to say soft power? In a very simple way, and this is what Professor Joseph Ney talked about before. He published an important book. It's entitled Bound to Lead, that was published in the 80s of the last century. And he was just talking about how can we use different techniques and different strategies, different ways, smoothly in order to get our benefits and to get what we are looking for. This is, in a simple way, this is what it is called the soft power. We have to differentiate and also to put in comparison together the differences between soft power from one hand and the hard power on the other hand. So in a very simple way, hard power means using military, using weapons, but when it comes to soft power, as you said in your introductory part, it's more about the culture, it's more about the history, it's more about any other technique that could be used to help you to get what you are looking for. So I think that Egypt, when it comes to the soft power, we are talking about a strategic tool that we have nowadays, and I think that Egypt, by employing and by making the best use of such power, we can move forward at the end.
Definitely we can move forward, especially that we are investing in all our tools. Right. And as you've said it, Professor, you're talking about hard power, and it goes in parallel also with soft power, investing in both to reach leadership goals. This is also very important.
That's absolutely right. But there is also something very interesting to mention here. It is, and this is probably can be also very strategic when it comes to the soft power, this is education. So education, this is an important tool that we have. And just before I come here, I was just following the news about what's going on today. Yesterday, there was two meetings. The first meeting between the Minister of Higher Education with the presidents of the governmental public universities. They were talking about, especially during such a challenging times because of such challenging...
Bad weather.
Right, the bad weather and all of that kind of stuff. So there is a very strong potential to change the education during the upcoming weeks to make it virtually. What does that mean? It means that today, using the digitalized educational systems in our country, it's not going to be something optional, but it's going to be something obligatory. So this is the first meeting. Then the second meeting at the same time, that was between the President and the Minister of Communication. They were talking about very significant topics. Number one, they were talking about how to build a digitalized infrastructure across the country. They were talking about building more than 35 technological centers across Egyptian universities' campuses. And we're going to talk about why do we have technological centers.
Yes.
but they were also talking about how to build up or how to create a database for Egyptian researchers inside Egypt with outside Egypt. But the most amazing thing is we're going to have in Egypt the first of its kind information university.
Yes.
Information university, which means that it will be based on just collecting and gathering knowledge and information.
Data, yeah.
We have today something which is called Bank of Knowledge. This is another indirect way of using the soft power. So when it comes to education, because back again to the technological center, I think that this is something very important. Why do we have technological center? This is probably, some people probably might ask such a question. In a simple way, it's because we would like to provide sophisticated services for our students in the digitalized world, but we would like also to make the citizens to enjoy the easiness and also the comfort feeling when it comes to using technological ways.
How can we invest in this sense of making this feeling or a comfort zone regarding the technological centers? How can we make citizens at ease when they are going to resort to these centers and invest also in the youth potential? Because as we know that the youth are investing in technology today, and it is mainly their basic interest.
Right. Well, and that's why we are just talking today about soft power from digitalized perspective. And why digitalized perspective? Because according to the latest estimates, more than 80 to 90 million persons here in Egypt, they are using technology. And you're just raising a very critical point here. Now, it is how we get the investment and the optimal investment. In my humble opinion, it's by increasing the level of awareness and to make people more oriented for using such technology. In this way, we probably will be able to overcome all the obstacles. We are facing today a lot of challenges, as I said before. One of the strategic points that we would like to make is just to find a connection between what's happening locally with all the global market today. So in this way, we can just find the optimal solution for increasing the awareness of the people and making the best investment.
Yes, a connection of what is happening locally, as you said, Professor Abdel Tawwab, and what happens internationally, and connecting those technological centers and research centers in Egypt with their peers around the world. And especially that you do have experience in this area. I mean, there are many positive sides throughout this sense of a link.
Right. There is no question here about that. Let me just tell you something to read here. A few years ago, I got something which is called Fulbright grant to work, to teach, and also to be educated in the U.S. academic institutions. And I spent a while in the U.S. in order to get the experience, get the international experience. And then I was just asking myself a simple question. Why in other countries they do have exchanging educational programs in such a way? And the answer for this question, back again to your point, it's all about the soft power. So we have countries that they are exerting much efforts in order to make soft power for their interests. So if the US, for example, they have certain educational exchanging programs like Fulbright grants, like Ford grants, then on the other hand in Europe, look at Europe today. So we have, for example, in England, there is a grant which is called Achieving. It's also exchanging programs in order to exchange students. And in this way, we can just exchange experiences. But going beyond that, it is more about the soft power of the country. I'm going to talk about what's happening in Egypt, but let me just give you one more example for what's happening in Japan. So in Japan, there is a program which is called JICA. So they are also exchanging experiences with our country. Today, Egypt is just setting up a program in order to make the same.
Definitely, because it is investment in knowledge, and in a sense of also linkage with the whole world. Egypt has raised an initiative that is called Study in Egypt Initiative. This is a very important initiative that is going also to attract brains to the country. And also we would have our soft power and transcending barriers. So it's a golden chance.
Absolutely right. Indeed, as you said, Tagreed. We have to remember and we have to consider in our minds also the historical dimension here. As we are talking about soft power, then there's something which is called history. We're going to talk about history as well, geography as well, the religious concepts and the religious establishments and institutions. But let me just give you one example. When Muhammad Ali Pasha, when he governed the country, that was like 200 years ago, what happened is he started to build and to make a modernized country by setting up a strong military system, but at the same time he was working on educational exchanging programs. And we do remember as well what happened when he sent few Egyptian students to France in order to get the education, and when they got back, we remember someone, his name is Rafa Tahtawi, who was the founding person to build the College of Languages, or the College of Al-Alsun, which is today one of the most...
of languages.
So, what does that mean? It means in a simple way that education works when it comes to the soft power. Back again to the initiative that is Study in Egypt, Idris for Masr. This is a very strategic initiative. Last year, we did have about 8,000 students, international foreign students, coming from different countries in the world. This year, according to the latest expectations, we will have about 13,000 students. Again, it's 13,000 students coming from different parts in the world. And probably some people might ask a simple question. So why do we have such students? Because in a simple way, they will be impressed and they will be overwhelmed by our cultural values. And when they get back home to their homelands, they will market for our country. And that is what we are looking for.
Definitely, and we are always looking also for re-energizing brains and brainstorming new ideas, and also capitalizing on soft power to be transcending barriers, because we do have here all the components that would make this sense of an equation succeed.
Right. I think, as you said, the components of the soft power in a very, let me just tell you in a nutshell, it is all about the history. It's all about the education, but the interesting part, when I was just wondering about where we get our such power, I think it's also because of the religious institutions that we have. We have today Al-Azhar institution, and then we have the Coptic Church as well. Both of them, they have very strong influence that goes beyond the borders. So when I was abroad, and I met a lot of people talking about Egypt and Egypt's history, but I was so much excited when I just met some people telling me, we were educated in your country under the sponsorship of another institution. So it gave me the impression like, yes, we do have the soft power, and yes, we have something that is very positive, but we need to make people be aware about what's going on today.
Yes, awareness is a key word. It's very important to be aware. And also very important is to catch the attention of the youth, because we need to provide them incentives to attract them to the bank of knowledge, as you've earlier mentioned. What sort of incentives? Because you're close to the youth and you're a professor at university. How to attract them? How to let them and encourage them to be hands-on?
Well, because of the nature of my job, I have a direct interaction with my students. So, well, number one, they are looking for a role model. So they want someone who can just provide them positive feelings all the time, positive attitudes all the time. So that's number one, because we don't have any other option. And the second point is just to make them aware about the current situation, about the challenges, about the obstacles, and then at the end, we will be able to get their minds oriented towards something positive. This is something very important. Our country today is very serious when it comes to digitalizing every aspect in our life. And why do we have that? In a simple way, because we would like to increase the level of, again, because I keep talking about that, it's the level of competitiveness, and it's also the level of combating corruption and having a high level of transparency. If you just know in any place in our country there is a high level of transparency, there is a high level of competitiveness, then at the end you will find something suitable when it comes to the job opportunities, and that's what the youth are looking for.
Definitely. Egypt is possessing numerous types of soft power, as we've mentioned, the language and the sense of communication and bridging gaps and extending a hand to the other, history and culture. Definitely also soft power in music, you know, the Egyptian music and like the music of Omar Khayrat is transcending barriers and roams all over the world. So the music is definitely also part of this important tool and strong tool, namely soft power. Short break. Talking soft power and digitalization, definitely also it has a link with sustainability,
right?
With sustainable development goals.
Right. So because, well, absolutely, because at the end, what we are looking for is we are trying to find a connection to achieve the development. And when it comes to the development, as I said before, so we would like to have infrastructure that can really help. So that's number one. And then when we focus on our educational institutions as well, because at the end we will have a new generation that will be able to cope with the international market. So this is something related to the sustainable development as well. When it comes also to spread the knowledge and focusing on our cultural values as well. So, and especially when it comes to culture, this is something very critical, because we have to remember that Egypt got before about 3 Nobel Prizes,
yes,
if I would say so, and we have also some famous superstars. So this is something that could be relevant, and how can we make the best use for all of them? We have superstars like someone like Dr. Zuhail, someone like Dr. Magdi Yaqub and what he's doing nowadays in our country. When it comes to the sports, we have Mo Salah as well.
Yes.
So
yes,
again, if we just have all of that, and if you just have if you have to build a solid infrastructure for having a developmental process, so at the end you can just get something which is called sustainable development.
Yes, definitely. So soft power has definitely a very good reflection on the different developmental projects all over the country, sending also messages to the world, and also attracting investors.
Right.
Because definitely also foreigners are very much interested in Egypt's culture and history and geography.
That's very true. And as you said now, because of the history, because of the geography, because you are just trying to modernize everything and digitalize everything, so you have a lot of incentives for the investors to come. So at the end, they're going to have something that could be motivating for them. And today you are just taking the leading role in Africa. There is a plan as well in order to get the 5th generation of technology as well. So we are just moving forward. Some people may not be aware for what's going on, but if we just focus on the details, we can understand the strategic plans that Egypt is already planning nowadays in order to make the mission successful at the end.
Yes, soft power is a tool towards achieving Egypt's vision, and it goes hand in hand with the hard power in order to establish this sense of a link and this sense of the strength for the state. Let's watch this report.
Soft power is the most important tool of the Egyptian state in carrying out its domestic and foreign policies to defeat the discourse of hatred, violence and extremism, and promoting peaceful coexistence between the various fabrics of society. Recent actions taken by the state have been very important, especially increasing the proportion of exports of cultural products at the rate of 20% per year, increasing the number of cinemas and theaters, and building an accurate and comprehensive information system on Egypt's present cultural realities by releasing a number of annual indicators such as indices of culture, freedom, and creative empowerment. The state has strengthened soft power through legislation and laws that protect intellectuals and creative individuals, as well as supporting it by political forces and civil society organizations. Soft power was also employed to face the psychological wars experienced by the Egyptian state, which have been trying to blur the national identity, exhaust civilian forces, and systematically destroy them and disperse public opinion through media platforms. The leadership has paid attention to the soft power bases present in culture as a supporting pillar in its domestic and foreign policies. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi adopted a different policy by trying to rebuild the internal and regional status of Egypt through the arts, media personalities, and writers. Egypt possesses numerous types of soft power. Among the most important are its language, history, culture, and political geography. The strength and influence of Egypt's soft power in the region is integrally related to the strength of the state and its political leadership's awareness of the importance of culture as a mainstay of national strategy. The foundation and rapid development of the modern Egyptian state allowed it to become a pioneer in the regional and international environment in many fields. Today, the quest would be how to utilize Egypt's soft powers to cope with world changes, new technologies, and the state's plans towards digital transformation, all part of Egypt's 2030 vision for sustainable development.
Definitely a very important vision, Egypt's 2030 vision for sustainable development. And one of the cores that we build on is soft power that strengthens the strength and the influence of the state. Talking more about the annual indicators that are there, and most importantly concerning also tourism, that we find when both the strength of the culture and the history combines with also the strength of soft power and digitalization, the results could be marvelous.
Right.
And here I pinpoint Egypt's gift to the world, GEM. Which is in itself the Grand Egyptian Museum, a cadeau, a great gift of Egypt to the world.
It's going to be the Grand Museum, and it's going to be, as you said, a gift for the whole world. And if we just consider in our minds that we have 2/3 of the archaeological tools and the artifacts and all of such historic icons in the world today. When I was abroad, I was just told like how you as Egyptians, you have very precious treasures that is focusing on the history as well. And as you said, because of the tourism, and as you said also, is to strengthen the corners and the borders of the country, it's critical to have something which is called a stable security status. So in this way, we can just find the equation to be very effective. Then on the other hand, we have the cultural values as well. When I was just talking to the international students here in Egypt, and outside, when I was also traveling some Arab countries, especially in the Middle East, I found out, Terry, that the Egyptian dialect is one of the most important, and it's overspreading in every Arab country. And I was just asking myself a similar question. Does that consider to be, or is that to be considered like a soft power? And my answer is yes. If you travel abroad and if you just can see that the Egyptian dialect is understood and it's well known, so this is something related to the linguistic aspects of your power as well, and this is something related to my academic background. It's more about languages and linguistics. So back again, it's when we just consider that the cultural values, I have to remember a famous incident that happened during the 60s of the last century when the Egyptian president Abdel Nasser, when he traveled to Morocco, and he was received by Morocco's monarch at that time.
Yes.
And while they were together and during the procession of the president, there was a Moroccan citizen stopped the Egyptian president, and he asked him to send his greetings to the famous actor at that time, Ismail Yassin.
Yes.
So he told the president, Abdel Nasser, please, Mr. President, don't forget to send my greetings to the Egyptian actor Ismail Yassin. And
yes, definitely a gesture that shows how soft power can affect hearts and minds. And here we can see throughout those beautiful sites, Egypt's tourist sites and destinations that are considered to be unparalleled worldwide. This is the magic of Egypt. The pharaohs never stop to be amazing. They amaze the whole world through the different inscriptions that are there written on the temples. And you could see also that they were the first, the pharaohs, to have the musical instruments inscripted at the temples as well.
Well, that's very true. And as you said, the musical senses and Egypt was, and Egypt is still, and Egypt will be as well, a very important center when it comes to music and the cultural aspects of the music.
Yes.
When I was teaching in the U.S., I was teaching students how to sing our Egyptian songs.
Phonetics.
And phonetics and how to learn language.
Right. Sing, yeah.
And so I think that when it comes to music, and as we were discussing earlier, some famous actors and some famous musicians as well, and some famous singers, and we have to remember the late singer Kulthum.
Of course.
So she was considered as one of the strategic tools of Egypt.
Of soft power, strong soft power.
Very, very potential and strong way. I do remember her patriotic role when she traveled abroad to help the military at that time. And in the U.S., in the United States, they remember Egypt sometimes by the pyramids, and they know very well the singer Kulthum.
Yes.
It means that Egypt's art does have also influence, not just inside Egypt, but going beyond the borders.
Going beyond the borders and talking also back education and soft power and the issue of digitalization. How are we investing in the youth today? How are we giving them incentives so that they would carry on this sense of interest in digitalization and in soft power?
I think today, if you just go and ask any young man, what do you want? He will say that after graduation, the first thing I would like to do is just to find a job. Mm-hmm. So his main concern is just to find a job. So in order to find a job, you should be qualified and you should have some tools in order to catch the best opportunity. You wouldn't be able to do that until you have, first of all, some strategic points to be considered in your minds. One of them is to use technology. So I think that if we just push them to use technology, and at the same time they got the orientation of how can we make the best optimal way for that. I have, and I know, few students who started to do their businesses nowadays online.
Yes.
So there is no need to go, and there is no need to open a store or a place. They do everything online. So it's all about, again, awareness, knowledge, and having tools in order to move forward.
Yes, and always trending is our Mo Salah has been like surpassing expectations, right, and amazing with his achievements. He's one of Egypt's soft power, definitely.
Right, right.
And also giving the sense of a role model that we're talking about for the youth, that you said, Professor, that it's very important that the youth would have a role model to look up to.
That's absolutely. The role models are very, very important. Mo Salah could be one of them. Absolutely, there's no question here about that. And we do have, in the science field, in the scientific field, we have Dr. Zuhail, for example. I do believe in Egyptian dream all the time. And I'm a firm believer that Egyptians can truly make something distinguished and can make something that was described in the past as impossible. And in this context, because we are talking about the role models and we are talking about education, we have a plan in Egypt to bring students from different countries in Egypt.
Yes.
We are also pushing them to use the technological tools. When they apply for the Egyptian visa, it's going to be something very easy to get the visa in order to come to Egypt. So they're going to have also very meticulous sponsoring programs in order to help them in our country. And in this context, when it comes to education, again, I have to remember a few words said before by the former U.S. Secretary of State, Colin Powell. So he said before that I cannot find something more valuable asset for the U.S. than to bring the future leaders of the world to be educated in our institutions, because at the end they're going to market for our country. So it's exactly the same philosophy and the same strategy that Egypt is pursuing nowadays.
Yes, preparing the youth for leadership, investing in the youth is very important. We do have today a leadership academy, a national academy for leadership that is working on investing in the youth potential. In the era of digitalization, how will leadership skills transform as well, in your opinion?
Right. Well, you know what, Tagreed, sometimes I was just raising this question. How can you get the skills of leadership? Because there is a clear difference between being a manager and being a leader. Being a leader, it's something that is innate. It is something that is by your intuition, but it's more also about gaining skills. And it's more about how to influence other people surrounding you. It's more about how to spread the positive attitudes, and it's more about how to motivate them, and how can you consider yourself as a model for them, because at the end they are looking for someone who can just spread such attitudes, the positive attitudes, and in this way you could be described like a leader person.
Yes, leading definitely, and trending is Egypt's Mo Salah around the whole world, leaving an impact and also leaving a smile and positive energy, not only through goals, but also through an attitude that is definitely a role model to follow. Short break.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. محمد صلاح يا رب. وهوبا الله 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 يا ابن الله الله يا ابن الله.
While talking soft power, we always talk also reading, which is a very important habit. You know, when you have this habit of reading, this is a bank of knowledge at home in itself, when you're used to read in the different specialities. And we do have the exhibit, the book fair is providing a very important opportunity. Your expectations for such important events, and how will the book fair transform digitally as well, if we're talking about digital transformation in Egypt?
Right. I think that there is a very strong connection here between book fairs and reading and soft power. Because here we are talking about the cultural dimension. And when it comes to the cultural dimension, Egypt already does have a very strong base when it comes to culture. We have to remember someone like the late writer Naguib Mahfouz, who got Nobel Prize during the 80s of the last century, and his novels today are translated into different languages across the world. So now, because we are talking about the digitalized systems today, and as you said, that we have the Bank of Knowledge, and I have an account personally on the Bank of Knowledge website. It gives the impression like you have all the reading resources and all the reading materials that can, because at the end, the reason here to make people read, it is more about to get their minds to be oriented for the knowledge. Knowledge is the secret and the key word in order to get the job done.
Yes.
So by having the reading strategy, in the past we were having something which is called Reading for All Festival. That was like in the 90s of the last century. Today, it's the Bank of Knowledge.
It is the Bank of Knowledge, but at the same time, how about the relationship between the young people and their books?
Right.
Will it only be online? Will they only be used to this sense of having a relationship with their books online? And will the hard copy of a book disappear? This is the story.
Well, I think it's going to be very hard to say that the hard copies will be disappearing one day. The positive thing that we have when it comes to the Bank of Knowledge is how easy it is to get any source of knowledge.
To access any sort of information.
Absolutely, in a very, very short time. So this is the first thing. And the second one is you can just review whatever you want in any place. At any time. So if I have my mobile and if I have an account on the Bank of Knowledge, then I can get an access for a lot of resources by one click. But that doesn't mean that we will get rid of the
hard copies.
Because this is part of our cultural heritage.
Yes.
But I think that by having such equivalence and something like balancing between both sides, in this way we will be able to get the job done.
Yes, the role of professors, the role of a professor in the digital age, and while we are witnessing this digital transformation.
Right. I think
how will it be?
Right. I think that this is a very critical point as well. I think that because if you are guiding and directing and helping and assisting, then you should have the knowledge first in order to spread that for the students. But if you lack the knowledge, then it doesn't make any sense in this way. So I think that professors, educators, academicians, everyone working in the field of knowledge, everyone who is just adding value of knowledge in our society today. And by the way, so today, there is something very, very interesting that you can find today, educational channels on YouTube. So if you would like just to make something to add value in the society, all you have to do is just to go on YouTube, make an account for that, and spread the knowledge. But I think that professors, back again to your point, I think that they play a significant role. It is something that we have to consider in our minds to be well qualified, taking training programs and having sophisticated devices in order to make the students be influenced and at the end to get the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, state power is a critical factor in international relations and again in the age of digital transformation. How can soft power, in your opinion, Professor, be supportive of the state's policies and further foster also people-to-people relations?
Right. I think it can foster and strengthen the relations among different peoples, among different cultures.
Yes.
I think that, as I said before earlier, we're going to have something which is called University of Information or Information University. It's going to be something amazing because back again to your point, how can we foster the relationship? I think during the digitalized era, we have to acquire the information. And I think that, as they say, always that information, it is something that is very powerful. If you have the information, if you have the knowledge, then you have a very strategic weapon. So one of the things here that would control the relations among different countries in the future, it's all about knowledge. And I think that Egypt today is very aware about such a critical point. That's why we're going to have the first of its kind information university that is supposed to be built in the new administrative capital.
Yes.
We will have also certain other public universities that they will be having something which is called the fifth generation technological devices. This is very critical because at the end, if we would like to upgrade the efficiency of our educational institutions, and in order to strengthen our relationship with other countries, we should have knowledge first, and that's what we are working for nowadays.
Well, knowledge definitely is going to be an addition, and one of the important components is the bank of knowledge and resorting to knowledge. How about science? Science and soft power.
Right. I think that when it comes to the scientific fields, and I think that young generations today are still looking for the role model like Dr. Zuhail.
Yes.
We have today someone, Dr. Magdi Yaqub. So what he's just doing, his amazing contributions, making something like cardiological center in the southern part in Egypt, in Aswan, in order to help all people. And believe it or not, today people are just hearing about what's going on in Egypt. So if you just imagine that you have a medical iconic person like Magdi Yaqub, who is just making something positive, something amazing, not just for Egyptian patients, but for everyone who would like just to get any kind of medical treatment. I think that we do have the experience, we do have the expertise, and we have also experts as well. And in Mansoura, there is another center that is internationally recognized nowadays. So we do have places and we do have some, but we need to be aware about what's going on in order to push the young generations to be motivated by such iconic figures.
Yes, iconic figures are numerous in Egypt in the different domains, and they are considered to be ambassadors for the country abroad. Well named Omar al-Sharif. Also, Dalida also comes on mind, and her beautiful songs and her melodies that are going to remain because they are like easygoing.
Absolutely right, as you said, and as you said, Omar al-Sharif and the superstar. So I think that such iconic figures it's part of our cultural heritage nowadays, and I think that our heritage is very important to be kept in the digitalized world today, because this will be the basic strategy that we have in order to move forward.
Yeah, she didn't sing in the era of digitalization or digital transformation. However, her music has left an impact, and she did leave an impact through My Country is Stunning. Yes, it is. Through its soft power, through its history, through its sense of communication, through its language, culture and tourism, and more also drama. The Egyptian drama has been like a super tool for soft power throughout generations all over the Arab world and the Gulf. They master the Egyptian language and the dialect, and also they know by heart Egyptian stars.
And this is also one wing when it comes to the soft power. It is the artistic dimension that Egypt already has. So I think that when it comes to Egypt's drama, it influenced spreading the cultural values of the Egyptian society. And it made Egypt, they usually call Egypt as the Hollywood of the Middle East. There is one Hollywood in the US, and then the second one here in the Middle East. And they always say across the Middle East that if you would like to get the fame, and then you've got to travel to Egypt.
Yes.
And so that is a heavyweight cultural value that can influence the soft power of this country. It is more about the artistic, as we were just listening now to the famous song, the plays, the drama, and even the media as well. So I think that this is one strategic track when it comes to the soft power. How influential is the media and how influential is the artistic style of Egypt? I think that this is very, very influential nowadays.
Yes, very, very much influential. Also, when you need to transcend barriers and to talk about heroic acts of Egyptians, like what has happened, for instance, in the everlasting memory of Ra'fat al-Haggan,
Right.
and this sense of the patriotic sense of Egyptians. It was through drama and through soft power that it did transcend barriers and was aired in different countries around the whole Arab world and also in the Gulf, that did transcend barriers. And more than one tool, actually, not only language, but history and culture and tourism and drama and Egyptian music, all are components that reflect on the vision and the power of a state using soft power as a very strong tool to achieve our vision. I thank very much tonight Professor Dr. Ahmad Abdel Tawwab, who is the Assistant Professor of Linguistics and Translation at Menofia University, for coming to our studios tonight. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, Terry, for having me.
And we talked soft power tonight, a very important topic, especially in the age of digital transformation. Many thanks for watching, and next Sunday with another guest and another colleague. Thanks for watching.